Meanwhile, Beijing has made an outreach to New Delhi. China's new foreign minister is in India. He stood out at today's G20 meeting. Just like the other leaders, Qin Gang got a red carpet reception in New Delhi today. He shook hands with Dr. S. Jaishankar. Later in the day, the leaders met one-on-one. And why is this significant? Because India-China ties have been locked in a diplomatic freeze. After the clashes in Galwan, the dialogue between both sides broke down. In 2020, Chinese troops engaged in an unprovoked attack. It happened in the Galwan Valley in eastern Ladakh. 20 Indian soldiers were killed in action. The India-China relationship hit rock bottom. High-level exchanges came to a virtual halt. Last year, China attempted an outreach. Wang Yi, then China's foreign minister, came to New Delhi. He was given a cold reception. India conveyed its position quite clearly. Until Chinese troops are at the border, the relationship cannot go back to normal. Now China is trying again. Ahead of the minister's arrival, Beijing tried to set the tone. An official statement said that China values its ties with India. Listen to this. China and India are ancient civilizations and both have more than 1 billion people. We are neighbors and are both emerging economies. A sound China-India relationship meets the fundamental interests of both countries and peoples. Well, that's all good. But what about the deadlock at the border? Is there any commitment from China to pull back troops? There isn't. So how should India approach this? As G20 president, should India keep avoiding China or should it engage with China? What should the strategy be? We try to do a SWOT analysis. SWOT is strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats, SWOT. We're starting with the strengths. China might be the bigger economic power, but there is an opening for India. China is going through some tough times. Its economy has tanked. The Wuhan virus and the wave of infections last year has taken its toll. China has virtually no friends, few that matter. Most have trust issues. Others are upset with China's wolf warrior diplomats. So the friendless dragon is trying to repair ties with the world. At least for now, Beijing appears to be on the back foot. And make no mistake, this is not remorse. This is just a reality check. You see, China's rise was enabled by globalization. But the Ukraine war is killing globalization. It is hurting China's economic recovery. China wants global markets. It wants the current system. And on this front, it could find some synergy with India. So that's the strength. What about the weaknesses? The biggest weakness is China's unpredictability. Like I said, the Communist Party is on the back foot. It's under immense pressure from the West. Recent events, like the spy balloon saga, have added to the tensions. The US and China are butting heads, and this can lead to more Chinese adventurism. And that will make any conversation with China more complicated for India. Third, the opportunities. India wants to revitalize the G20, make it work for the developing world. China seems to be on board with that idea. Consider what the Chinese foreign minister said today. Allow me to quote, "The G20 is the premier forum for international economic cooperation. Faced with a volatile international situation and rising global challenges, the G20 must rise to the occasion, enhance cooperation, and contribute its share to global development and prosperity. We need to make global development more inclusive, resilient, and beneficial for all." It's a bit rich coming from China. But compare the statement with what India's Prime Minister said today.
We must all acknowledge that multilateralism is in crisis today. The experience of the last few years, financial crisis, climate change, pandemic, terrorism, and wars clearly shows that global governance has failed in both its mandates. We must also admit that the tragic consequences of this failure are being faced most of all by the developing countries.
So there are clear synergies, but there are clearer challenges. Besides tensions at the border, China is trying to pursue its own agenda at the G20. At the summit today, it pushed for Xi Jinping's Global Security Initiative. What's that? It's an idea that China revealed last year. A global security initiative. Basically, it is aimed at challenging America's military partnerships. China wants to dictate the rules of engagement in the Indo-Pacific. That is the larger plan. The specifics are not yet clear, but India sees it as a direct challenge to its own security interests. So as of today, the threats outweigh the opportunities. India should err on the side of caution. Yes, talking is any day preferable to fighting. But remember, China only understands the language of strength. So keep working on the defenses.